Planning, organizing, leading, controlling. Behind every one of these managerial functions is a single constant action: making decisions. The choices a manager makes dictate how resources are used, how employees behave, and whether the gears of an organization actually move toward its goals. But when organizations stall, it rarely comes down to a lack of intelligence or effort. Most management failures happen at step one. Managers stumble because they misdiagnose the exact type of problem sitting on their desk. You see this play out in two extremes. First, you have leaders facing a sudden, unexpected crisis, a shattered supply chain, or a massive shift in technology. Instead of adapting, they try to force the problem through an old rulebook, expecting standard operating procedures to fix a completely novel situation. On the flip side, you have managers treating daily operations like a philosophical puzzle. They pull their teams into long meetings and waste immense creative energy overanalyzing routine, repetitive tasks like approving leave or reordering inventory. Effective management requires recognizing the nature of the issue in front of you. You have to know exactly when to rely on a strict set of rules and when to abandon the rulebook to trust your own analysis. To categorize these issues, we look at how clear the variables are. Structured problems are routine, repetitive, and well-defined. Because these issues happen constantly, like processing customer refunds, the organization already knows the causes and the correct solutions. When you face a structured problem, you use a programmed decision. This means you don't start from scratch. You simply follow established policies, rules, or standard operating procedures to resolve it quickly. Conversely, an unstructured problem is new, highly complex, and lacks a clear definition. If market share suddenly drops or a new competitor enters your space, the causes and effects are clouded in uncertainty. There is no manual for these situations. Unstructured problems require non-programmed decisions. These are unique solutions built heavily on managerial judgment, critical thinking, and experience. This infographic maps the two distinct paths. On the left, a structured problem triggers a three-step sequence: identify the routine issue, consult SOPs, and execute. On the right, unstructured problems require deep analysis and human judgment to reach a non-programmed decision. Dropping an issue into the correct bucket, structured or unstructured, is the critical first step before any resources are spent or actions are taken. Let's look closer at how programmed decisions function. In this environment, the data is entirely clear, accurate, and easily available. The uncertainty level is practically zero. Because you aren't hunting for information, these decisions create massive operational efficiency. Similar problems are handled using the exact same methods, which guarantees fairness and consistency across the entire company while keeping daily tasks moving rapidly. Standardized guidelines mean employees don't have to guess. They can perform their tasks with minimal training, and executives don't need to hover over them to ensure the work is done right. That's why these decisions are explicitly designed to be handled by lower and middle-level managers. They keep the administrative machine running smoothly. But relying purely on procedures comes with a fatal trade-off: extreme organizational rigidity. Standard operating procedures are fragile. If the parameters of a routine problem change even slightly, say a supplier alters their billing format, the established rulebook will fail to produce a viable outcome, and the process stalls. Think of program decisions as an organization's anchor. They provide vital operational stability and prevent chaos in daily tasks, but they cannot generate forward momentum or strategic growth. This table highlights the stark contrast when we move to non-program decisions. Look at the information available row. Unlike the structured side, the data for unstructured problems is often incomplete, limited, or entirely missing. Look down at the decision process row. To bridge that massive gap in data, decision makers must generate new ideas from scratch. They have to rely on their own managerial judgment, heavy situational analysis, and intuition. Because there are no procedures to fall back on and the stakes are incredibly high, the management level row confirms these decisions are strictly the domain of top-level executives. Doing this properly takes time. Non-program decisions are inherently slower because managers have to carefully evaluate multiple unproven alternatives before they can commit to a course of action. The payoff for that grueling, slow process is survival.
Confronting complex, unstructured problems head-on is the only way an organization adapts to market shifts, encourages internal innovation, and secures its long-term future. If program decisions are the anchor, non-program decisions are the steering wheel. They demand high effort and carry high risk, but you cannot navigate unfamiliar terrain without them. The difficulty of choosing the right path depends entirely on the environment you're operating in. We can map this across a spectrum of predictability, moving from certainty to risk, and finally to uncertainty. Under certainty, you have stable situations with complete, reliable information. You know exactly what will happen after you make a choice. This allows for fast, confident, low-risk program decisions, like locking in a guaranteed fixed interest investment. In the middle, you have risk. You don't know the exact outcome, but you have enough historical data and market trends to estimate the probability of success or failure. The risk is measurable, meaning you can manage it through careful analysis. On the far right is uncertainty. This is a highly dynamic environment where reliable information is scarce or completely unavailable. You cannot assign probabilities because the outcomes are entirely unpredictable. Operating in true uncertainty forces leaders to abandon data-driven algorithms. You must rely heavily on raw experience, judgment, and creative problem-solving to push forward. As uncertainty increases, your ability to rely on historical rulebooks drops to zero. This drastically increases your chance of failure, but it is also where organizations carve out unique strategic advantages that their competitors can't replicate. To put this into practice, we map problem types to management levels. In the bottom left quadrant, we plot familiar, routine problems. This is the domain of daily operations, handled efficiently by lower and middle management using standard operating procedures. In the top right quadrant, we plot novel, complex problems handled by top-level management using strategic judgment. The off-diagonal spaces are failure zones. You invite disaster when top executives micromanage routine tasks or junior staff navigate crises without rules. Effective management requires pinpointing a problem's coordinates on this map before deciding whether to reach for a rulebook or schedule a brainstorm. If you operate in middle management, your mandate is clear. Build robust procedures. Push as many recurring issues as possible into the structured bucket. The goal is to ruthlessly reclaim your time from repetitive tasks. If you sit at the top level of leadership, your true value is found in the unstructured bucket. You must cultivate a high tolerance for uncertainty, because your job is to drive growth in areas where no rulebooks exist. The ultimate operational rule is simple. Automate the routine so you can reserve your deep analytical energy for the complex. Masterful decision-making requires the wisdom to strictly follow the rules and the courage to know when to write new ones.